the Brisbane Lightning commentator, Lauchlan Eales. Welcome to the Morning Hockey Shot, Lauchlan.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was just talking about, and obviously you're sitting in the background listening, and you put up the two fingers because I was getting confused about someone not playing at AIS Arena. I don't know why I've got it in my head, but
I can't remember who it is, but someone, someone played. I believe they had 2 home games at Phillips still before they moved to AIS. But I think we were one of the first. I think it was the second trip down to AIS was us, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was Brisbane. I don't know why. Just on the coaching scene, I suppose, just talking about Jade Galbraith departing ways from the Adrenaline. The Lightning have got a new coach this season, an import coach as well, not someone that's local. How much of an impact has that had, bringing in this fresh coach for the Lightning this season?
I think it's been huge, to be honest with you. This team, if you look at them on paper, I definitely think that they're quote unquote, outperforming where most people thought that they would be, especially myself. I kind of had them kind of in that 6th spot fighting for that last playoff spot. And I mean, the coaching has been very well, very good this season. He's getting a lot out of players, and they're playing a very kind of gritty style, which I know for fans is fun to watch, especially when we're trying to grow the game here in Australia. And I think that coaching 100%, you need the right coach who can get the best out of your players, especially at this level. And I believe that it's been massive for them so far.
Is there anything that you've noticed from your position that with this new coach that's come in, that you've seen that the Lightning have, I suppose, done different from previous seasons?
I think he's definitely switching things up a lot more. There was kind of in past, you would see that they'd kind of not be happy with the status quo, but there'd be less experimenting with lines. Like you look at the game against the Melbourne Ice a couple weeks ago, Coach Lundqvist started the 4th line up top. And yes, that's an opportunity because it was getting to take the opening face-off against Dave Booth or whatnot. But like he's putting trust in that 4th line. They're getting to work. Like there's a lot of young guys who are getting time now, and I think it's helping because it kind of gives a belief within the squad of that anyone, if you work hard enough, you can get in the side. I think that's the belief they're trying to promote. Now, whether that is able to carry this team to bigger and better things, we will see. That's left to be seen yet, because I think there definitely is still work. This team definitely does still need work to get to a potential championship contender team. But I believe, yes, the coaching 100% has been massive. The coaching change for this team, and Coach Lundqvist has been incredible. Just the way he manages the game as well. He's not afraid to take his timeouts early. And we've seen a couple times in games this year where they've started to get off to a lull in the first period a little bit, and then the coach has taken that timeout, or like in the first period and sometimes in the first 10 minutes. And he's very good at kind of managing momentum, I believe, which is huge for this Lightning team.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a couple of comments in the chat just quickly. Perth is the team that I was thinking of. Won't get a chance to play at AIS this season. We do have Julie Sugden in the chat saying good morning as well.
Morning, Julie.
We'll know who Julie is, owner of the Brisbane Lightning. So good morning, Julie, and a few comments in there as well. Steve Moller, Lightning were the second weekend at AIS, split the weekend 8-6 on Lightning and Saturday 4-6 Brave on Sunday. Absolutely. Just speaking of the young people that you sort of touched on a little bit there, the young talent that the Brisbane Lightning have with the new coach and coming through. You've obviously seen the evolution of the Lightning to get to where they are right now in the season, sitting at the top half of the standings. How surprised are you? And it's funny because when I've got full disclosure, I've got connections to the Lightning, and obviously Julie was just in the chat, and I've had chats with Julie previously where we've spoken about how close are the Lightning? Are they this close? Are they that close? And I've sort of said to Julie a few times, look, you're probably only a couple of imports away from making that next step, because that's how tight this league is. How are you surprised at the jump that they've made this season?
I think that they're definitely outplaying where they're supposed to be. And I know I'm probably not going to be very popular here in Brisbane for saying that. But right now, if you look at where this team is, I was very concerned at the beginning of the season when I first saw the roster, especially defensively. I think that there's a lack of depth on defense that is sometimes getting exposed a little bit this year. If you look at, there have been some big scores to go up against the Lightning, and in the games that they've kept the away team or kept the other team from scoring too many goals. The Brisbane, basically, it's a simple math equation, right? They're averaging about 4.5 goals a season. In games when teams score more than 4.5 goals, they lose. In games that they keep it under 4.5 goals, they win. So essentially, it's been the defense is where everything has been riding on this season, I believe. And I think that we're talking about the young players. It's good for the future. But as of right now, I think it is definitely going to stop this team from being a serious Goodall Cup contender this season. That, like you said, it's really been, they are kind of a couple imports away, but I also think that they're going to need to get the local players to step up as well, big time, in order for this team to contend for a championship.
In terms of that defensive aspect, I suppose the goaltenders become part of that. I wrote in an article a couple of weeks ago about the Brisbane Lightning and how within the top 6, Canberra is pretty much the only other team that is close to the Lightning, but their goaltenders have had an even split pretty much of games. Do you think there needs to come a time where they make a decision on who is their number one, or do you think that it'll be an even split right through the finals?
I think it will probably end up being a bit more of an even split. I definitely think that there was a definite number one in mind at the beginning of the season. And just because of the way that people have played, like, you can't keep Jacob Dornbos on the bench when he's been making 58 saves a game when he's come into play, you know? I mean, so it's one of those things that I definitely think there was a number one in mind, and performance-wise, people have been making themselves undeniable, which I believe it is good for Brisbane. Like, you want to have competition in the goal, especially because if you have a definite starter and a definite guy who's going to be on the bench and they know their roles to be as such, you can kind of get complacent in goal. Whereas right now in Brisbane, one mistake can cost you the next game, the start in the next game type of thing. So I think that it's a healthy pressure to have on a goaltender, because it kind of forces you to have results. And so far, I think the goaltending has been part of the reason why Brisbane have been so successful this year. They're already one win away from equaling their most ever points in a season, and they still have seven to go, you know? I think also the imports this year, having some real good top quality imports, has been important this year. Tanner Hops, he's already the club's leading single season leading goal scorer. He passed Jordan McTaggart, I think 2-3 games ago. So it's been important. The team is building. They're getting better quality guys in here. And I think that the inclusion of an import defender next year could be huge to kind of lift everyone just with some experience. But I think Brisbane right now is in a very good spot moving forward.
I am here with Lauchlan Eales, the Brisbane Lightning commentator. If you've got a comment about the Lightning, drop it in the chat and I can get it up on the screen. You did just touch on Tanner Hops, and I was going to talk to you about Tanner Hops on today's show. It seems like Tanner Hops is, or more recently, I think, has just exploded. The first player to 50 points this season in the Australian Ice Hockey League. What have you seen from Tanner? Because I think it's exciting for the Lightning to have the points leader, the first person to hit 50 points this season. I think it's absolutely massive, and especially since at the start of the season when I was watching the Lightning, for me it was Jules Sterney was the standout, and whenever I watched the Lightning play, I was like, wow, look at Jules Sterney. Now all of a sudden Tanner Hops has taken the charge and sort of put the team on his back in a scoring sense.
I think Tanner has had the privilege, if you will, of kind of being the import that went less talked about this season, especially at the beginning of the season. All the talk was about Carson Miller coming over from Sydney, just with the season he had last year. And then Sterney came in for a limited amount of time. And we always knew his time here was going to be limited. But when he came in together, then all of a sudden he's the point of the spear. And then Miller's the second thought, which is kind of allow him to just play hockey. It's kind of allowed Tanner to just settle in and play hockey the way that he and we know that he can. And, you know, of his 52 points he has right now, 32 of those are assists. So he's just been unbelievable to watch. He kind of goes he kind of goes unseen a little bit on the ice, which I think is what allows him to be as successful as he is, because I don't want to say he's an afterthought, because obviously he's not. When you're a 52-point scorer, you can't be an afterthought. But like, I believe that because he's kind of been going under the radar until this point where he's really kind of exploded, it's definitely allowed him to settle in, play the hockey that he knows he can. And it's been incredible to watch. I know where Brisbane's kind of held back in the past was the quality of imports we have. And this is no offense to any of those guys. I love all of those guys who've come over. They've been great guys, like great to have around the club and hang out. But, you know, when you bring over an import and your import defender is your leading point scorer with 37, you know, that's not necessarily a great output from an import. You really want the imports in this league to be not just here, but 2-3 levels above. Look at guys like David Booth. Look at guys like Ty Wishart. You know, that's what you want your imports to be. And I think this is the first time we're seeing that kind of production out of Brisbane imports and getting the production you expect out of your imports. And it's definitely taking the pressure off of a lot of guys, because, you know, last year when they snuck into the finals with the conference system, they really had to rely on a lot of the local guys. I think it was either last season or the season before, Julian Fodor had 42 points as a teenager. So, you know, they're allowing the team to kind of get points from elsewhere as well, too.
Yeah. Steve Muller's in the chat as well. What have the Lightning got for a Dornbus replacement when he goes back to the Dogs next season? Does that leave Trinket as number one, or do they go with an import as a goalie as a number one?
I don't know the exact answer to that, because I'm not privy to these kinds of conversations. Like, I'm not a part of these conversations, obviously, when they're happening with the management on who brings in imports. Nor should I have any input in that. I'm a commentator. Like, I'm not. But I believe it's going to be interesting. I know that Jake is very happy up here, but I imagine he will head back to Sydney next year just to have that starting role, just to not have to compete as hard. But, you know, I think that both of those guys are happy up here right now. I'd love to see both of them stay, because right now I think we have the best local goaltender pairing in the league, which I know Brisbane fan Jake and Mattis both as people too are such lovely people to have around the barn. Like, I've never seen Jake Dornbos not smiling ever. So he's like, both of these guys are so incredible to have around the barn. I know morale wise in the team, they're very good to have as well. So I think if Jake does go back to the Dogs, it's going to be very sad, but also like happy for him, because, you know, it's going to help the league grow too, having better goaltenders around the league as well. But I think an import could be a move. I know the Lightning had an import goaltender last year, and he was good, but I mean, when you have the same production out of the two locals and you're not necessarily using an import spot. I have a weird belief also on import goaltenders in this league, which I'm not going to rant about because I'll take up all your time. But I believe that there's this weird kind of cycle where import goaltenders will hold back the growth of Australian goaltenders, but Australian goaltenders will hold back the growth of this league, if that makes sense.
It sort of does. Yes, it sort of does.
That sounds really, really bad to say, and I don't mean it badly at all. But I mean, you know, you're bringing in an import goaltender that takes a spot away from an Australian guy who's not going to get minutes, which are key to their growth. But if you also bring in, say, an AHL quality goaltender who's going to allow 2 a game, then all of a sudden you've changed the entire season for your team. So goaltending in this league is a very sharp double-sided sword, I believe.
Yeah, I always look at the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, who have a no import goaltender rule, and it's all local goaltenders.
Which for development is great.
Yeah, and it might have taken some time, but now in the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, there is some really, really young, talented Australian goaltenders that are doing amazing things.
Look at the Boxall tournament from last week. The goaltenders were incredible. And, you know, there weren't many goaltenders who were not young either. I know Katie Meyer, who for Queensland played incredibly this past tournament. So the goal on the women's side and on the men's side too, goaltending, the future is very bright in this country for goaltenders. It really is. But it's going to take some time for these guys to get to the next level where you're seeing guys go overseas to play more. Like I know Trinka has gone overseas to play in America. I know there's other goaltenders who have, and this is valuable to them, I believe. But yeah, I think the league could definitely do with a policy like that, but I also see the logistical almost nightmare that it would create in the AIHL.
We've got a comment here from Sky. As a Melbourne Ice fan, import Asian goalie and a little stronger defense.
Tatsu's been incredible. Tatsunoushi Nishida is one of the best goaltenders, if not the best goaltender in this league. Just he's been incredible to watch, even last year as well. I love the little things he does, and it kind of shows the Japanese style of sport, whereas they kind of treat it very disciplined, almost like a martial art, where if you look at Tatsu, he's smaller than some other goaltenders in this league, but his positioning and his technique is so polished that he's an incredible to watch. And he's a huge part of this Melbourne Ice run. That is, I know there's so many other guys on that team that you can't point at one finger, but Ishida has been massive for them 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be interesting to see the Brisbane Lightning goaltender situation next season. When like the Matus news was massive when it happened, just how young Matus still is and talented. Everyone could see. So that was massive for the Lightning. But it will be interesting to see that going forward. One of the players I wanted to touch on, and I've written about before, and I just love watching him play, and I believe he's probably a bit of a cult hero at the Lightning, is Batu Gendanov. When I was watching the Adelaide game, and it's so unique that, and there are players in the AI, but it's sort of unique where Batu can start as a forward and then can shift into defence if need be. And the Adelaide game that happened when they played the doubleheader over at Adelaide a couple of weeks ago. How massive is Batu Gendanov in the scheme of if the Lightning want to win a Goodall Cup and go deep in the finals? How big? I know he's physically big, but in terms of the team, how big is Batu for the Lightning?
I think that if the Lightning are to win a Goodall Cup, Batu Gendanov will be a part of that for sure. What he brings to this league is a lot of people don't realize it when you watch him on the stream as well too. Until you see him play in person, you have no idea what his game is about. This guy is on skates 7 foot tall. He's every bit of 6'6", 6'7" off of them. He can move faster than half of the like in a sprint from end line to end line. He beats 90% of the guys on the team. I guarantee it. He's insanely quick. He's insanely powerful, and he's very versatile. Like you said, he's played every position on the ice. I don't know how true this is, but I heard a couple years ago, I believe last year, that the first team that actually reached out to Batu Gendanov to bring him to Australia was bringing him here to play goaltender. So that I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that. And he's played every position on the ice before. So having him, he is one of the few ice hockey players I've ever seen that should just have a U next to his position. He's not a forward, he's not a defender, he's a utility guy. And he, especially when we talked about how much the defense has struggled just with depth this year and not a lot of experience, especially when, guys like Neil Pretorius have been out of the lineup for a couple weeks now. Other guys like, and there's been some injuries as well at the back. And having a guy like Batu who not only can, but is willing to go wherever you put him on the ice has been huge. And I think every team in this league, if for some reason Batu Gendanov were to not come back to Brisbane next year, which I'm pretty sure he already has said he has full intention on staying here. But if for some reason he weren't, there would be a line out the door of other teams in this league trying to sign him just because of how versatile he is.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think he's going anywhere.
No.
I think he likes Brisbane. I think Brisbane like Batu as well. And as I said, the vibe that I get is that he's a bit of a cult hero with the fans as well.
100%.
Yeah.
And he's, there's a few of those guys in this team. And I think the way that Brisbane has embraced a hockey club has been awesome. Because I know a lot of people didn't really expect it. I know Queensland isn't necessarily where you think about first off when you think about Australian ice hockey. It's probably the last place you think other than like maybe the Northern Territory. But like for us to have embraced, they've sold out almost 50 games in a row. You can't part of the reason why I tried so hard to become the commentator for the Lightning was because I couldn't get tickets. I couldn't see their games because they would sell out so quickly. Like I'm partially joking when I say that, but like I'm being pretty true when I say that. The way that this city has embraced this team has been inspirational, to say the least. Like this team kind of came about very it was very quick how everything happened. We don't need to go into details on how it happened. People already know the story, but it came about quick, and I think the city has embraced this club in a way that I don't think many people know. And in a way, like when you talk to people, people don't even know that we have a team here. So then they'll find out that we have a team here and go, oh, so yeah, it'll probably be easy to get tickets. It's probably not a big thing. And then they'll look and it's just sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. So I definitely think that the future of hockey is bright here in Brisbane, especially when you look at the young kids as well. There's so much talent coming through the youth here in Brisbane. There's a lot of guys who I think are going to become those kind of cult heroes here in Brisbane. You know, there's guys like Sasha Rapchuk, Aram Rapchuk. Both of those guys already starting to be viewed that way. Luca We Met is another one. You know, I'm just looking at the roster up here because there's too many names to like. Braden Costa, who's just joined the team as well. He's already, you see people like his jersey in the auction sold big time a couple weeks ago already. Like there's so many guys in this team and there's so many characters that the city of Brisbane as a whole is kind of seen as a bit of a weird city anyway. So to have all these like characters on the team, I think perfectly kind of complements Brisbane.
I know Luca is very much highly thought of within the Lightning. So that's no surprise as well that you mentioned Luca. There is a couple of comments here. I think it's about your Batu, Julie, with a few emojis there. Sky saying Batu for goalie. And we do have a comment from Matt Meyer. Loving the goalie debate. Agree with Lauchlan, double-edged sword, but I lean towards a local development argument. That's coming from a goalie dad as well.
This is a
Matt
person,
Meyer,
by the way, who a lot of this conversation has happened with. Is Matt Meyer, and I have talked about this a bit before. But yeah, it's you have to lean towards the local development, like we said before. And you know, like I mentioned Katie before and her performance at the Boxall tournament. It's without giving these people a shot, they don't give a chance to show themselves. Like the game I'll use for an example, I believe it was the third game of the season for the Lightning. They were on the road Saturday night in Melbourne against the Ice, and Dornbos got the start, I believe, just because Trinka had played the first two games and Dornbos was just getting the start. And he made 58 saves and we won down there in overtime. It was the first loss that the Ice got handed all year. It's without that opportunity, though, we would have never got to see that performance out of him and know that he's capable of those performances, which I think, you need the local guys to get these opportunities to show what they can do, because without it, they're never going to improve. Yeah,
absolutely. I am here with Lauchlan Eales, the Brisbane Lightning commentator. Drop a comment in the chat before I let Lauchlan head off for the morning. Andrew Egan, good morning from a hotel in Canberra, fellas. Melbourne Ice road trip in full swing. They do have a big contingent heading up there. Sky East and Brisbane have a great fan base. We have loved going to Brisbane games, cheap travelling, no need for a hire car close to the train station. And Amanda Dixon, a lot of people know Amanda from the AWIHL. We love Matt Meyer. And Corey Cantina, just on your comment, he stood on his head that game.
And it was it was honest. I've been watching ice hockey for 28 years. I've lived in Philadelphia and Detroit. I quote unquote no ball when it comes to this game. That performance from Jacob Dornbos down in Melbourne was one of the best goaltending performances I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was, and like I said, he doesn't get the opportunity to have that performance if he doesn't get a start. So it's
Yeah. Julie Sugden as well in the comments. We love the traveling fan bases. They bring so much color and noise to Brisbane. Just talking about Brisbane, I know this is probably going to be like a really big question, I suppose. When you look at stuff like the AIS Arena, Canberra's moving from Phillip, and I look at Phillip and I look at Boondall, and I'll probably think to myself, I've never been to Phillip, but they sort of look similar.
Don't compare the two. They do not compare the two.
But
Phillip. Yeah, I'll
just
keep
like
my comments to myself on the Phillip.
But in terms of like a local rink, just your standard local rink, I look at both of them on the stream, and I have been to Boondall, obviously. But when you look at what the Brave have been able to do with the AIS Arena, just just nudging the needle and changing the culture and the look of ice hockey in Canberra. Now, when we've had Stephen Campbell on, they're the third highest attended team in Canberra now. So there's 2 rugby teams and then the Brave. They're a hot ticket. They're in the Canberra Times. ABC News shows up now to cover them weekly.
I mean, the Cavalry definitely helped them with that too. But
yes, I would agree as well. Do you think if Brisbane had something like that, that would get very much similar?
100%. 100%. You could put this to, and it's just the logistical challenges, because obviously it's stupidly expensive to run this. It's building the rink is logistically a nightmare. It's, but I genuinely believe that if you move the Brisbane Lightning down the road, so I'm 2 minutes up the road from Boondall, from the Boondall Ice Rink, and about 3 minutes down the road from the Brisbane Entertainment Center. If you put this Brisbane Lightning team in the Brisbane Entertainment Center and promoted it enough, they would put 14,000 people in that rink every single week. I genuinely believe that. And that's not just Brisbane. That's every team in this country. If the AIHL was promoted better, and was like, if the teams had, because look at how many teams are selling out. Well, there's like, it's, but what is cool about it though is my first ever hockey game I ever saw was at the Joe Louis Arena, right? I've seen tons of games. I've been to Winter Classics before. Those experiences don't compare to the AIHL, and I will tell you why. When you are sitting 300 feet away from the rink, 400 feet away from the rink, right? It's a cool atmosphere. The barn's big, it's packed, it's loud. But when you get to stand on the boards and there's a net in front of you, not glass, a net, you feel like you're standing on the rink. Like the first game I ever saw at Boondall, we won't talk about who was playing, but the first game I saw at Boondall was an unbelievable experience, just because it's the first time I ever got to experience standing with a net, standing that close to a game. And it makes it feel like it's happening 10 times faster. It's a unique experience that I think it's weird, right? Because a lot of the Australians I've spoken to have said, oh, I wish we could play in big arenas and big, play, which obviously would help grow the game to a level that it would be unrecognizable. And the amount of talent you'd be able to bring over would be incredible. And, the monetary, like they'd be making more money and everything. But at the same time, I think the Australian Ice Hockey League, what makes us popular on a world stage is because of how unique we are. It's because of the fact that this almost has a charm, right? Minor league baseball, a lot of people now are starting to go back and like look at what's happening in England with football right now. Premier League teams are struggling to sell tickets because it's been made too expensive. It's been made too corporate, too polished, too washed. Teams are starting to go back to the National League and watch teams in the 3rd, 4th, 5th div. There will be more people that watch this game as the product at a higher level becomes more stale. More people will trickle down to these products. Just look at the viewership from the AHL last year. The Calder Cup was the most watched time in history for the Calder Cup. And I think genuinely that these leagues are going to thrive in the future because of just how stale things are starting to get and that's not just ice hockey. It's every sport is becoming too corporate, too stale, and I think that the fans here, and because the fans here feel like they have a say, if you will, right? You can talk to your owner, right? Like I'm a Flyers fan. I could never even dream of getting into a room and speaking with the owner of the Flyers and say, hey, this is what I think. But I can talk to Julie and Mike any day of the week and say, hey, that this is, this is what I think. And they'll sit there and listen to you. And I think that having that is what it's the local feel is what is going to build community with these clubs in 5, 10, 15 years. Like, because obviously a bunch of the more established clubs already have this, but the Lightning will have a true community in about 3-4 years. They already do, but the community is going to grow, and these clubs aren't going to be looked at as just a hockey team anymore. It's going to be viewed as a family, as a community. And I know the Mustangs are really good about that. The Ice are really good about that. The Brave are really good about that. The Lightning are good about it. We've just only been around for 3 years, So that is what I think that this country has to offer to the game of ice hockey, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot in that. And I've had Eric Bolner on, and we've spoken and touched on that a little bit about why we love the AI. And it is because of those things, because of the fact that you have that local feel and you feel like you're involved, and there's so much local passion involved in the league and the clubs, etc. Sky Eastham as well, just chucking a comment. As a fan, you forget how much the players can hear you at the rink with nets.
They hear everything. Everything. The amount of times that standing behind the net, I have gotten goaltenders to sit there and crack up to themselves just by saying the most off-putting like thing you could imagine, just random things you can imagine. And it's, that experience is like, when you go to, and obviously there are fans that take it a little far sometimes. It does happen, but I think part of that, the charm for this league, especially up here in Queensland, where Brisbane's a town all about rugby league and like all that type of like hard-nosed type of, Brisbane sees itself as a quote-unquote blue-collar town. I think that ice hockey fits so perfectly in that, and just giving people, the amount of people that I know have brought friends and have just said, just stand here behind the goal and talk to that, basically to the away goaltender, and guys have a blast because you feel like you're on top of the game. A guy gets checked into the net right in front of you, you're face to face with the guy sometimes. It's an experience unlike anything you can ever get, and if you want that experience in the NHL, you're going to pay $1,000 for it. You pay $25 to go down to your local team. Like, it's the same thing I say about fans in the A-League, right? Like because I know you're a Melbourne Victory supporter as well, and if people just embraced our local game, which I think hockey's doing a better job of than the A-League is, but the fact that we have people embracing the local versus like, there's far less people that I know that go, oh, I watch the NHL. I have, I'm a Calgary Flames fan. But no, I don't watch the AIL. That's AIHL. It's rubbish. That doesn't happen in the AIHL. The people who over here support a team over there still support their local side, which I think is a step above what other leagues that are quote unquote not their competitors because they're seen as higher up. I think that over time, that's the AIHL's their foot to stand on when it comes to growing in this country will be the fact that the local communities are so involved in these teams.
Yeah, and I've noticed over my time, I actually think there's AIHL fans that don't support any other team in the world, just their AIHL team. They don't watch NHL. They don't watch PWHL. They don't watch the Elite League in UK. They just watch the AIHL, and that's it. That's 100%. Their team.
I have a friend who is that way. He watches the AI and the AWIHL. That's his year-round ice hockey. And if you try and show him an NHL game, he'll be like, turn that off. I have no interest in it. And it has nothing to do with the quote-unquote quality of it or whatever. It's the fact that, like I talked about before, these clubs now no longer really identify with your community. There's a few NHL clubs that still do a good job about that, usually in the smaller markets, but like your Chicago Blackhawks, your New York Rangers, your Philadelphia Flyers, they don't care about their communities anymore, nor kind of should they. Nor should they, but they're at a position where they don't have to. And I think that the teams here really having to rely on the community the way they do is the strong point of this league. And I think some people would look at it as a weakness. I think it's a strength. It really is.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Couple of comments here before I let you go, mate. Got Dave Eastham just talking about Brisbane Lightning fan engagement is amazing straight after the game. You couldn't do that at an arena. They are very good, the Lightning, across their fan engagement, across their socials and everything. Steve Muller as well. There's a fine line for teams in smaller, more intimate rinks to be financially viable, and the next step, like the AIS move. We do have a comment as well here from Andrew Egan, a big one. Just paid $1,000 for NHL tickets at the Garden. Pastor won't know what travelled halfway across the world to see him play, but for a fraction of the cost, my daughter gets to watch her hockey coach play, have a chat to the coach at Brecky and on a road trip, and still gets to enjoy the game we love. Levels to it, of course, but the AIHL is a great community experience. So Andrew Egan's talking about the Melbourne Ice and his daughter being able to talk to Kerry Goulet.
Just to touch on that for a second, that is the thing that this league does better than any other league in the entire world, right? I'm pretty sure it is a league-wide thing because I notice every team does it. But after the game, the first thing they do, they skate around a circle, thank every fan for being in the building because they know without the fans, this league doesn't exist. With, Brisbane, you can go up and talk to the players after the game in the bar upstairs, and have them sign a stick or whatnot. I know whenever a stick breaks on the ice here in Brisbane, the social media people are running to go get it because they give it to a young fan like after the game usually, and they'll get the player to sign it too. And the thing is, like he said, Pasternak, will have no idea that you flew across the world for them. But the fact that I know a player, like, just to use one for example, just out of the lineup, like a Sasha Rapchuk, right? Pasternak's not going to know you flew halfway across the world, but if you tell Sasha Rapchuk, I drove halfway across town to watch you guys play, they're going to be appreciative of it, Yeah. And it's one of those things that to the kids, especially, they don't know, like, realistically, they don't know the difference. Like, whether you're talking to, Brad Campbell or you're talking to, like, Jaromir Jagr, to these kids, they don't know that, and they don't care, because when you're at the arena, you've bought a ticket to go in, you've gone, it's a day out, it's an event. You go and you see these guys on the ice, you see them and the social media all around the league. I'm going to give a shout out to the social media people all around the league for making these guys look like stars, making these guys look like superstars. You would never know that these guys are working other jobs 9 to 5 every day, toiling just to be able to play the game that they love. You'd never know that when you're a little kid, because of these guys who are out there presenting this league to make these guys look like superstars. And that is another huge thing that this league does tremendously well versus other leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a comment on Instagram from Little Fox. The NHL games I've been to were great, but it felt disconnected because it was so big. I definitely enjoy being closer to our games. Makes it feel way more special. Totally agree. There is something about it. And just one last one, mate, to finish it. Julie Sugden, the kids line up to get autographs from the players. They're encouraging young players to strive every game. It's great to see. Lauchlan, thanks for jumping on this morning, mate. I know the Lightning, they got a weekend off, the Lightning, and then they're back next
back
weekend
at home against Adelaide. Yep.
Yeah.
Big weekend off. Last weekend was a very tough road trip down to Newcastle, where, by the way, we have still never won at Newcastle away. Have only beaten the North Stars twice in 10 appearances against them. So there is kind of definitely, I don't want to go ahead and say there's a curse already, but I definitely think there is something about Brisbane that doesn't like playing against Newcastle. But, one win and they're essentially in. That's going to be the thought this weekend. Adelaide, they're going to be a lot to prove. So it's going to be a very, very good game. A lot of good games this weekend as well. But thank you so much for having me.
With no Brisbane Lightning this weekend, what's on the schedule for you?
Uni and more uni assignments. So I'm going to be sitting pretty much right here for the next 36 to 72 hours, and I'm going to be plugging away. So, yeah.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly right.
Lauchlan, mate, thanks for jumping on. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll catch up with you at a rink hopefully sometime this year, maybe next season.
Yeah, sounds good, mate.
There he goes. Lauchlan Eales, the Brisbane Lightning commentator.